Welcome to Shad's Guitar Show. Whether it's the gear or the players who made the gear famous, join me each episode as we discuss all things guitar. Well, hey, what's up everybody, and welcome into yet another exciting episode of Shad's Guitar Show, and I am super glad to have you guys joining me today for a little exploration of the differences between the three most common fretboard materials, right? There are a bunch of different things we could talk about, but I think what we see the most often is going to be maple, rosewood, and ebony. So we're going to dive into some of the differences, why you might prefer one over the other, and just kind of the characteristics of each. But before I do that, I just wanted to remind you that in the show notes is a link to my Venmo. If you should feel so inclined to kick a couple bucks my way for a pack of strings or whatever, if you're enjoying the show, that would be greatly appreciated. If money's tight and that's not an option, I would love it if you would leave a comment and just let me know you're enjoying the show. That would be super cool as well. So without further ado, let's dive into a discussion about the big three fretboard materials. All right, so before we dive in, let me set the stage. The fretboard, which I'm sure you all know, is also called a fingerboard. And that's the slab of wood on the top of the guitar neck where your fretting hand lives. Every bend, every chord, every slide, that's all happening on the fretboard. And while a lot of players spend a lot of time focusing on body wood, pickups, string gauge, when chasing tone, the fretboard wood is quietly doing a lot of heavy lifting. It affects feel, it affects playability, it affects tone. Yes, it does, and we'll get into the ongoing debate there. And it affects the visual personality of your instrument. So let's meet our three contenders. First up, we have maple. The bright-eyed blonde kid in the room. Maple fretboards are hard to miss. They're light in color, usually with a gloss finish, and they give the guitar a clean, almost vintage look. Think classic Fender Stratocaster or Telecaster. Now here's the first thing to know about maple. It's dense and hard. Harder than rosewood and harder than ebony in terms of feel under your fingers. And that density translates to a few things. Tonally, and yes, fretboard wood does contribute to tone, especially on acoustic instruments, but also to some degree on electrics in a more subtle way. Maple tends to give you a bright, snappy, articulate sound. You get clear note definition, a fast attack, and excellent sustain. Slap a maple fretboard on a Telecaster and you've basically built a machine that cuts through any mix like a laser. Feel-wise, maple fretboards are almost always finished, meaning they have a layer of lacquer or polyurethane on them. This gives them the characteristic smooth, almost slick feel. And some players love that. Some hate it. If you've ever played a neck that felt like sliding your fingers across a freshly waxed car hood, well, that's maple. Over time, with heavy playing, that finish can wear through in spots where you play the most. And honestly, a lot of players think a well-worn maple neck is one of the most beautiful things in guitar aesthetics. It truly does tell a story. Maintenance-wise, maple is pretty low-key because of the finish. You don't need to oil it like you do with unfinished woods. Wipe it down, keep it clean, and you're done. Who should gravitate towards maple? Well, if you play bright genres, maybe country, funk, surf rock, old school rock and roll, or if you just love that snappy, articulate attack, maple is definitely calling your name. Next up is the most classic and beloved fretboard wood in the game, rosewood. If maple is the blonde, rosewood is that rich, dark brunette. It ranges in color from a warm reddish brown to a deeper chocolate tone, and it has a beautiful grain pattern that just looks kind of luxurious on the neck. Rosewood has been the default fretboard wood on Gibsons, Fenders, and all kinds of variants for decades. There's a reason for that. It's wonderfully versatile. Tonally, rosewood sits in a warm, round camp. Where maple is bright and snappy, rosewood smooths things out a bit. It takes some of that harsh, high-frequency bite off the top end and gives you a warmer, more full-bodied tone. This is why rosewood feels so natural on blues guitars, jazz guitars, and acoustic singer-songwriter instruments. It's musical in a way that's hard to fully articulate. It just sounds right to a lot of ears. Feel-wise, Rosewood is typically unfinished and very lightly finished, which means you're touching raw wood, and that gives it a much more organic, natural feel than maple. It's slightly porous, it has subtle textures under your fingers, and a lot of players say it feels like a guitar that's alive in a way that a gloss maple neck doesn't. Your fingers can breathe, bends feel a little smoother, and vibrato feels more effortless. Because it's unfinished, Rosewood does require a bit of maintenance. You want to clean and condition it periodically. Lemon oil is the classic choice to keep it from drying out, especially if you live somewhere with very low humidity. A dry rosewood board can crack and shrink over time, which is a headache you don't want. So who should gravitate toward rosewood? Honestly, almost anyone. It's a great generalist, but especially if you play blues, jazz, classic rock, acoustic music, or anything where warmth and feel are priorities. And last but certainly not least, the dark horse, literally, ebony. Ebony is the most visually dramatic of our three woods. It's almost jet black in color at times. True ebony is nearly featureless with a near uniform dark tone that makes a fretboard look like it was carved from darkness, and it is striking. You find ebony most commonly on higher-end instruments. Gibson has used it on their upper-tier models for years. Taylor uses it extensively. Custom shop guitars love it, and there's a reason it tends to appear on premier tier. Ebony is expensive. It's harder to work with, and sourcing it responsibly requires care. Like rosewood, it faces sustainability pressures, and a lot of manufacturers now use Richlite or other composite alternatives, marketed as eco-friendly ebony substitutes. But when you get your hands on a true ebony board, you understand the fuss. Tonally, ebony lives on the bright and articulate end of the spectrum. Actually similar to maple in that regard, but with its own character. You get extreme note definition, excellent clarity, fast attack, and very good sustain. The density of the wood means there's almost no softness or mushiness in the tone. Every note speaks clearly. It's clinical in the best possible way. Feel-wise, ebony is incredibly smooth. Smoother than maple, smoother than rosewood. It's so dense that it doesn't really have open grain in the way rosewood does, and it doesn't need a finish to feel glass-like. Running your fingers across a well-finished ebony board is a genuinely luxurious experience. Fast players, shredders, technical players, classical guitarists often swear by ebony for exactly this reason. There is little or almost no resistance. Maintenance sits somewhere between maple and rosewood. Ebony doesn't need oiling as frequently as rosewood because it's so dense. It doesn't absorb moisture easily, but you definitely shouldn't ignore it, especially if you live in a very dry climate. So who should gravitate towards ebony? Technical players, classical guitarists, jazz players who want extreme clarity, and anyone who values the premium tactile experience. It's also rewarding to players who really want every note of a complex passage to be heard distinctly. Okay, so let me bring it all together in a clear comparison. For tone, maple is bright and snappy and articulate. Rosewood, warm, rounded, and musical. Ebony, bright and articulate with refined edges. Feel, maple is smooth, finished, slightly slick. Rosewood, natural, organic, and textured, while ebony is incredibly smooth and glass-like. Maintenance, maple is easy, just keep the finish clean. Rosewood, condition periodically with oil. Ebony, very low maintenance, but don't totally neglect it. What are they best for? Well, maple is great for country, funk, surf, or bright rock tones. Rosewood for blues, jazz, acoustic, classic rock, kind of the all-arounder. And ebony for technical playing, classical jazz, and premium feel seekers. Visually, maple is light blonde, think vintage Fender vibe. Rosewood, warm, brown, classic and versatile, and ebony, near black, dramatic, and a premium aesthetic. So here's my honest take after years of playing all three. The fretboard wood conversation is one where your hands will ultimately tell you the truth faster than any spec sheet. If you can, go play guitars with different fretboards back to back. Not just strum a chord, actually play. Play some scales, do some bends, play the stuff you actually play at home or on stage. Close your eyes and notice where your fingers feel comfortable, where the tone makes you want to keep playing. Because here's the thing. The best fretboard wood is whichever one disappears beneath your fingers, the one that stops being a thing that you think about and just becomes part of your instrument, part of your voice. Maple, rosewood, ebony. 3 woods, 3 characters, all of them worthy, all of them capable of producing extraordinary music in the right hands. And honestly, I would say that most guitar players probably have a mix of the 3. Most commonly, you're going to see maple and rosewood, but I'm sure that a lot of guys have guitars that feature all 3. And really, it's great to have guitars that offer a little variation. Not many of us have only one guitar, but for those who do, I'm curious, what fretboard do you gravitate to? Maple, rosewood, or ebony? Comment below and let me know what your favorite is. I'd like to know that. That'd be cool information to get from you guys. So share that with me in the comments below. So if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure and share it with a guitar playing friend. Also, wherever you're listening, please leave a 5-star review. That is incredibly helpful and would mean a whole lot to me if you would do that. Also, when you're on YouTube next time, get over to Shad's Guitar Show and make sure you subscribe. And also follow Shad's Guitar Show on Instagram so we can connect in those places as well. And I think you'll find some interesting content there as well as listening to the show. So, as I always say, if you will continue to listen, I will continue to talk all things guitar.